When you expand a vehicle by about a foot and add a third row, well, what does that overall mean? Well, it means you're going to have a much more diverse consumer. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now, behind me is the 2018 Volkswagen Tiguan, and what they've done for this generation is exactly that. Expand the overall numbers and add that third row, which pretty much means now they can wedge about any consumer inside. Now, the Tiguan has definitely grown, and one big evidence of that is maybe on the outside, but truly right here at the third row, something that came as a shock because I just didn't expect it. Now, the reason for that is a lot of vehicles in this size segment aren't doing what this vehicle does. Now, the third row can be argued, is it big enough? Does it really squeeze someone inside? But in my opinion, it's there in case you need it. Now, it's definitely going to come with some compromises, and I'll show you those in just a second. But by taking this sized segment, basically adding that third row, the Tiguan has well-grown maturity, size, and deliverability when it comes to consumers. Now, when you look at the overall numbers in this vehicle, one thing it doesn't fit in some cases is, the third row. How do they actually squeeze it in? There's other SUVs in this market that just don't deliver that availability factor, and that's where this Tiguan truly shines. Now, overall, it's about 185 inches, wheelbase about 109, with some other SUVs in this market creeping in about the same numbers or just a little bit bigger. Where they fall short is in not delivering that third row, and that's what I like about this offering. Just not too big, pretty scaled down, but with that third row, it's there when you need it. How many of us been at the soccer game, the rain comes, we got to deliver the soccer team home? Well, two rows just don't help. That third row says, well, I can add some extra people. Now, the other numbers really scale this vehicle quite well also. The overall height, about 5.5 feet tall. The overall width, about 6 feet. That basically means you're not getting that typical SUV with three rows where it's just huge, ginormous. This vehicle still scaled down, still what we remember, but just with that great option at the back end. Sweeping down the side, one thing you'll definitely notice on the Tiguan is it's pretty much body color all the way around. Just a little hint of chrome accents here and there, maybe the most pronounced chrome up front. Now, overall design is pretty much straightforward, going to kind of a box-like styling, and the reason for that is when you add that third row, well, you got to get rid of coolness and go with practicality, especially when it comes to headroom numbers. And you can see that in the roofline. As it gets to the back, pretty much squares off. That compared to some of the cooler family members that maybe sculpt a little bit more aerodynamics, just can't happen here on the Tiguan, especially now they got that third row. Now, as for ingress, pretty straightforward, really easy to use, and what I like is it's intuitive. Basically, put the hand here, it knows you're there, unlocks the vehicle. Now, if you want to lock it up, simply slide your hand right there, locks it up with ease. Now, what I also like is when the vehicle is locked, well, so is the fill-up area. I talk about it all the time, and what I like is this is secure with the vehicle, and of course, when you unlock it, it unlocks this, making it, just one more level of security, and it does have the cap system. Now let's look at one of the biggest features there at the cargo area. Now, swinging around here to the back end, this is where you're going to see some big differences, specifically with that third row, a little bit more when it comes to cargo space in general. Now, overall design back here, again, a little bit plain Jane, maybe an accent of a spoiler, huge offer when it comes to glass, body color all the way around. Now, one thing I'd like to see that's kind of cute and cuddly maybe on the Volkswagen GT is this area right here, the handle. Now, what I've gotten used to with that is, of course, pressing the VW. It kind of makes for a nice little handle, pops it open. Well, they've gone pretty much standard operating procedure here with the handle right here in the middle. Now, what you'll see when it comes to safety is there is no backup sensors here on this model, but there is a backup camera. Gives you just enough bird's eye view to really see what lies behind. Now, once you pop this open, what you're going to see is decent cargo. Now, specifically behind the third row, around about 12 cubic feet. Now, with these laid flat, it's going to be about triple, around about 33 cubic feet. With everything laid flat, really upwards of 65 cubic feet. So plenty of interior volume, specifically back here, even with the third row in, really mirroring kind of an average sedan. So if you're used to a sedan, well, you're not compromising right here by any means by having this third row. Diving into the cargo area just a little bit more, let's look at what's going on back here. Now, first off, you'll see this kind of heavy cladding that's adorning the seat backs and the flooring area. Now, what this is is the Volkswagen's cargo protection system. Now these are add-ons that basically Velcro to the back of the seats, and of course these would typically be laid flat, and what you see is these ridges around. Now that's going to be helpful when this seat is laid flat. Put some boots that have snow on it, whatever, what's going to collect it all through here. And what you'll notice is with the backing nice and rubberized, well, it's not going to seep through. It's pretty much going to hold everything, let it evaporate or whatever, take it off, rinse it down, and that's going to prevent any permanent damage to the interior. And having replaced some interior carpet on my own vehicle, I find that that's obviously not any fun. So by minimizing any wear and tear here, basically wear these out, replace them, get new ones. Now it even goes right down here to the cargo floor itself. Again, real easy to install, just Velcroed, goes even over this hatch cover. And what you'll see with this hatch down below is a full-size spare. Interesting, even with the seat here, they found room to find room for a spare. Now with the operation back here, 50-50 split, room for 2 people. And what's great is you basically have a little handle, just squeeze it, tumble it forward, and it lays flat. Now with this rear cargo, with this flap here, kind of makes for a seamless flat area. And of course you lay this flat just the same. Now it's going to again give you around about 33 cubic feet of space with what you see here. And this is where you see those ridges really come into shape by allowing you to put wet items, and it stores it right up. Now lastly is making more cargo, and there's handles on both sides for that. Just simply pull it and they tumble forward. Now let's talk about one of the newest features on this vehicle, that third row, and really what the ingress to get back there, and well, should an adult find its home back there at all? And the answer right away is, well, probably not, and you'll see that in just a second. Now first off is really, how do you get back there? Now with the seating in place, first thing to do, grab the handle here on the shoulder, tumble it forward, pull the handle here on the hip area, slide forward, and that's going to give you a little bit of ingress. And again, I'm about 6 feet tall, so let's see how this works. Basically going to grab, lean in, and find your spot. Now what you're going to find back here is decent overall comfort initially. Low bench, not a lot of height of course, knees fairly elevated. Now once you grab this seat back, watch your toes, could be some potential crimping, pinching areas, and then what you'll find is it locks into place and then comes back. Now what that basically means is, as you can see, not a lot of room for your knees, specifically for my height. My left knee is about as cramped over as it can be, and basically a tight fit for an adult. Now all the seating's not in place, but you can imagine that basically as this cramps in, I'm going to have it just a little bit tough time finding my spot. Now back here, legroom numbers about 27 inches, fairly anemic. Anything under 30, 31, really for an adult, just not going to find a comfort zone. Now once the seating's in place, you'll definitely find it a lot tighter. Now what does that mean at the end of the day? Well, basically for smaller individuals, even more so when it comes to headroom. Now there's just a little bit of a hump here, but for my headroom itself, it's creeping in to this spot back here, which basically means I'm coming into a kind of a head banging affair. So there should be somewhat of a warning when it comes to this third row that it's, well, if you're over about 5'10", pretty much second row forward. Now looking at the second row, let's talk about the overall comfort here. Now it's definitely contrast what lies there at the third row. Really, this is where adults are going to find their best fit. Now right here across the middle, nice elevated bench seating, a little bit of sculpting for the outer passengers, decent center passenger if you need it, but there is a modest hump here in the middle, so you're going to argue for feet space just a little bit. Now as for elbow support, you do have a nice elevated center console, 2 places for cup holders, even though they are on the modest side, so they're not going to hold anything that's really too big. They're just not going to fit here. Now as for air and comfort, what I like is truly the Tiguan delivers, specifically right here at the center console. Nice air vents that's really directional, gets to the back occupants quite well. Now for the third row, they're going to have to kind of wait their turn for the air to kind of filter back there. It eventually will. Now there are some connections back here, USB and traditional power supply. Now the vehicle has grown, but one thing that hasn't is the power plant. They're still going with a modest option here. Now specifically it's a 2.0 liter inline 4-cylinder turbocharged. Now it's going to deliver around about 184 horses and 221 foot-pounds of torque. Now this was the front-wheel drive version, and one thing to note, if you do like the third row, well, it only is in front-wheel drive. If you opt for, well, the all-wheel drive 4Motion system, well, that's only going to be a 5-passenger option, basically meaning, well, you're going to have to leave some friends if you prefer to have grip at the 4 corners. Now, as for the transmission, both front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive are coupled to an 8-speed automatic transmission. Now, bigger is better doesn't only apply to the third row option, but obviously when it comes to entertainment, what you see is this huge touchscreen system, really with nice ease of operation. Now, first off, it's symmetric knobs, nice volume and tune select over there, and a little bit of motion activated that you'll see when this pops up as you get closer. Now, right across the middle, of course, are the shortcuts and presets for your entertainment selection. Now, we're on satellite radio right now, really gives you a nice visual of the radio select, but let's go to a different source, specifically like FM, AM, whatever, and what you see is those dials, and that prettiness goes away. Instead, now they're just kind of empty blocks. Now, as digital radio goes to advance and there's some art that actually goes along with this, I'm sure those will actually fill the void, but right now it just makes for an awkward kind of layout. Now, if you go back to the satellite, that gives you a different visual, of course. Now, down below, nice little shortcuts, channel list. You can go with a specific tune select, so if you want to go to, let's say, 45, hit enter. I like that because it just makes it so much easier to get to a station versus just scrolling through. Now, you do have phone select and a whole bunch of different apps as well. For climate control, what you're going to find is some nice symmetric knobs and pretty, again, ease of operation. Really dual zones up front, big fan selection knob in the middle. And I've said this on some other vehicles that this should really be the go-to choice for fan selection, just so much easier, and put some modes there on the actual knob itself. Now, there's some other modes across the top. Do have heated seats, but no cooled seats to note on this vehicle. Way down low on the dash, you'll find this little niche for your phone and some connectivity, 2 USBs, auxiliary jack, and a power supply. You'll find dual cup holders up front with these nice spring-loaded grippers, really going to hold any size drink with ease. Little shallow tray to hold some other miscellaneous items. Now, for elbow support, you will find this center console. It's fairly shallow, doesn't go fully out, and it kind of blocks this cup holder right here. So if you do have a tall drink, this overhang does prevent bigger drinks getting in this area. So it wouldn't hurt if we just shave this front part off, because again, it doesn't really elongate out that much anyway, or even better, let it slide back and forth like some other vehicles. Now, once you pop this out of the way, what you'll find is just kind of a basic center console, really no connectivity, but just a deep area to store things. Looking at the gauge cluster, the first thing you'll notice is the analog tach and speedometer with a nice digital readout in the middle. Now, that digital readout really gives you that speedometer that I prefer versus the analog on the right. It really makes for a nice quick glance down, because as you can tell with the gauge, it really gives you just a general sense of how fast you're going, but that digital readout really nails it. Now, if you want to, you can change the various digital display in the middle, just kind of scroll through a bunch of options. Now, it's not truly colorful at all, just a typical black and white design, but it does provide nice information. If you want to let in some light, one thing to note is you have this button here. That's going to get rid of this sunshade up above, and you can open it. What I'm referring to is this huge amount of glass that runs the entire span of the roof. That does it for this edition of Road Warrior, and a test drive behind the wheel of the 2018 Volkswagen Tiguan, a vehicle that has grown and given one more option than the competition, specifically when it comes to that third row. And well, the argument can be made is, well, does it really fit the need of this vehicle? And truly, I've always said, well, deliver the option and let people see if they fit the equation. And what I'm referring to is, well, can you get back there? And for most cases, the smaller children, the individuals that are a little bit smaller, can get back there, and it's great in a pinch. But is it a daily hauler for that third row? Probably not, but it is just an added benefit. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.